What's going on, everybody? You know who it is. This is Austin, and this is the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about real estate and we talk about lifestyle. This episode is going to be amazing. This episode is on credit. What to do, how your credit is comprised, what to do if you want to raise your score, what to do if you're looking to buy a home, what to do if you're looking to leverage your credit to buy more income producing assets. And I had to bring on a true credit expert. This episode is all that and more. I try to keep it, going forward, I try to keep my episodes around 30 to 35 minutes, but if the gold and the content is pouring out, I have no choice but to let it to keep going, and hopefully you're able to get every single minute of it. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the show. If you or anybody that you know can benefit by coming on to the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, please let me know. And if you or anybody has received extreme value by listening to the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, please jump on the iTunes, leave me a rating review. Let's get this message shared. And it was funny because Jay-Z asked me this question the other day.
You want to know what's more important than throwing away money at a strip club?
And we're about to find out what is more important. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Today on the show, I'm very, very excited. I got a chance to get a hold of this individual. He's really on the move. He's extremely busy, so I'm glad and I'm blessed that a mogul such as this individual kind of reached back and spent his precious time to come on the show today in order to educate us on credit. And the individual that I have that's going to be on this show today, he's the credit expert, and I've been watching this individual for the past couple of years now, and it never ceases to amaze me how the plethora of information that is out there revolving credit. So he's a credit expert. He's the author of 2 books, which we'll talk about later. He's the CEO of We Management, which is his personal business surrounding credit repair, credit management, credit advancement. He's also a real estate and credit coach with the J. Morrison Academy. And he's also the co-founder of Easy Funding, which we're going to dive into later on in the show, which will help you leverage your credit in order to purchase real estate assets. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Will Roundtree. Will, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite, and I look forward to it.
Absolutely. We're going to dive right up in here. Just give the audience an idea. How did you get started? How did you find yourself to where you are today? And I want to start by saying I'm pretty sure it's a story in which maybe you weren't the best with credit and then finally started to find your way. Is that kind of true? I'll let you to dive right up into it. How did you get started and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting because, like most, I always say, individuals who's found success in something, usually it stems from a need. And so I can remember, being just an up and coming entrepreneur and seeking out mentors. I remember I had a mentor at that time back around 2003 who told me, he said, "Will, eventually credit will become the new dollar." Really didn't know what he meant by that. But as I, started to, blossom and go out on my journey of entrepreneurship, I ended up moving to Las Vegas from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And when I moved out there, I quickly found out what he meant by that. Couldn't, buy a house without couldn't even rent an apartment, without having to put down the 3 times the deposit. Couldn't buy a vehicle without a cosigner. And then there was a couple other things that really just kind of blew my mind, in which I needed to have a decent credit score to qualify for. So here I am, 2005, just moved to Las Vegas, didn't know anyone, was renting a room from a stranger I met off the internet, and I had $500 to my name in bad credit. And so I wanted to figure out, why that was the case. Why was I kept getting denied? How in the world was I going to come up with 3 times the deposit to put down for an apartment so I can, have my own place? And so, as they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So I wanted some different results in life at the time. I didn't want to be 26, 27 years old calling my parents asking for a cosigner. So I just started to research more about what this credit thing was. Of course, credit and finances was not something that I was privileged to be educated about as I was growing up. So went on a quest to learn as much as I could about credit. And I can remember I used to go to the internet cafe every day. It would cost me about $5 for a few hours to be able to hop on the internet. And just started learning more about credit, renting different books and different things like that. Became very, lightweight obsessed with different things about finances and just how money worked. And so around 2012 was able to buy my first property. So as I started to learn more and more about these things, started to see more about how credit adversely affects everything we do in our lives. And I said, you know what, if this information was beneficial for me, I could only imagine what it could do for others. So, I started, trying to help friends and family. And as we know, sometimes in business, those are usually the last ones that want to do business with us because they remember who we used to be. And so I just said, you know what, I'm just going to start educating people about credit. I tried to start a few credit repair companies, but at that point, my focus wasn't to help individuals per se. And so the businesses didn't necessarily go well. And then I changed up my whole model and said, you know what, I'm going to focus on credit education. The services will just be a byproduct. And from there, literally, my business got flipped upside down in a positive direction. And from there, it's been, upward trajectory ever since. So, the short cliff notes of it is it really just started out as a need for myself personally.
And it seems like humble beginnings, because we're going to be diving into how credit is comprised, so you can pull back the curtain on that, how to improve your score, things like that. But you've now been, and it's interesting because you've come from those humble beginnings, and now you've established businesses that are now helping individuals essentially get their credit exactly where they need to be, or, aligning the goals of those individuals credit wise, and then bringing them from point A to, wherever they're looking to go. Correct?
That is correct.
And is that we management, or is that we manage, your business we management, or just kind of give us a couple of the businesses that, you're involved with that are helping individuals do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my parent company, which is We Management Services, is a company that I initially started. A lot of people ask what does the We stand for. It's actually my first initial and middle name. So WE, and, we just couldn't think of anything else at the time. But essentially, I didn't want to box it into just credit repair, which is why I named it We Management, because I really wanted us to be a more robust company to where, I used to have this tagline where I called myself the financial concierge, meaning anything in the space of financing or funding, I wanted to be the bridge for that, that end buyer or that client or that student. And so credit repair just happened to be the byproduct, because that was what, I had gotten really proficient and really great at doing. And then as I started to see how credit touched so many different aspects of entrepreneurs, I kind of branched it off from there. And that's how I started doing, helping clients and small businesses with getting capital for startup, to grow their business, to scale, credit education personally, credit education for the business. Because one of the things I noticed throughout my journey, there's so much information about credit, and I wanted to brand myself as that go-to where people can come to and feel comfortable with the information that they receive. So when I do my workshops, my lectures, my one-on-ones, I tell people the truth. My job isn't to, scale back the information so that way I can get you to pay me a premium. My goal is to give you all the information and let you make an informed decision, because one of the things I learned in business and just in life, the more information you give someone, when you educate them, they want to do business with you, because now you've created yourself as an expert. And so that's kind of really the model of how I built my business. But yeah, so We Management Services is my parent company. Then I formed a partnership with my partner, Jay Morrison, who, in his right, his claim to fame is obviously, real estate mogul, serial entrepreneur, built multiple $1 million companies. And so his main focus was real estate investing and educating the masses about real estate. But one of the things I noticed is he really didn't have a curriculum that was credit based. And so when I met, my partner, Jay, I figured that our services could be a perfect marriage for, the masses, the communities and especially our target audience, which is the underserved, communities. And so I brought my company over. We merged and created Easy Funding, which is, kind of a culmination of both of our companies, where we teach small and medium-sized businesses about every single component of building wealth, which it starts with credit. Then the foundations from there is education, from education on how to leverage credit. And then from there, being able to actually go and start building wealth through acquiring assets. And so those are my two main companies that I hold, some of the services and titles. And of course, I have my book, Credit is King, which kind of gives people a Cliff Note version of the credit pieces of my parent company and what we do. But the long and short, that's what our services entail and how I came up and co-founded Easy Funding.
And for those that are listening, be sure to grab the book, Credit is King. You Google it, it'll pop right up. Anybody that chooses to buy the book, let me know before you choose to buy the book. I will give you a coupon. Will, you don't have to worry about that. Will, obviously, you'll be paid in full, but I'm going to be giving my guests a small coupon for those that are looking to get the book. So let's dive into this, right? Because credit, and the reason why I wanted to bring you onto the show for this particular reason is because one of the things, both for individuals looking to buy their primary residence or individuals that are looking to purchase investment property, it's either money or their credit, right? One of the two is kind of messed up. So as they start to work towards leveraging their credit, I wanted to bring you on so that way they have a kind of a step-by-step plan or a reference guide that they can work off of. So we're going to jump right into it. How is credit comprised? And I most individuals have an idea, the length of credit, your, utilization rate, the missed payments, things like that. But break it down for us. How is your credit score comprised?
Yeah, absolutely. So credit is broken up into several components. I call it the pie graph. But before we even go into that, the biggest thing I always like to tell people is don't be too, and the words I'm looking for is, so a lot of times when people look at their credit, when their credit isn't in the position that they want it to be, the score usually intimidates most people. And the biggest thing is I always tell people is that 3-digit number, for a lot of clients that I've dealt with, they're actually more frightened of that credit score than they are of, street activity, sometimes that they may have had to deal with in their former lives. But the reason I say that is because the credit score is a little bit misleading. And this is what I mean by that. The credit profile is more important than the score, meaning you can take someone who's 18 years old, fresh out of high school, has one $300 credit card, nothing else reporting. As long as they make payments on that credit card, over 6 months, keep a balance less than 10% of the credit limit, and make all their payments on time, they'll have a 700 credit score. Doesn't mean they can go and buy, and get finance for high, limit items. Now take that same scenario, same $300 credit card, they max it out and it goes to collections. They'll have a 400 credit score. It doesn't mean their credit is horrible. It just means they don't have enough of what makes up the credit profile for the score to be strong enough, or the profile to be strong enough. So breaking that down, what makes up the profile? You have the highest component, which is credit utilization. Credit payment history. meaning your payment history over time. Now, one of the things that also hurts a lot of people's scores is when people don't have any credit. If they don't have any credit, they don't have any payment history. So essentially, they would be missing a great deal of what makes up their profile. Or let's say you take someone and all they do is go and finance a vehicle. They pay that vehicle off. Their credit score will drop drastically because now the one thing that made up their profile, which was payment history, is no longer reporting. And so that's why I say what you don't know can hurt you. A lot of us assume we're doing the right thing, which from a financially obligation, we are. But by not having anything reporting and you paying off your vehicle, you could essentially, drastically plummet your credit score because of the lack of information we've been taught about credit. So credit payment history makes up 35%. 30% is made up of credit utilization. What is credit utilization? So the first thing is credit utilization is only comprised of based off of revolving credit accounts, meaning credit cards and department store cards, anything that makes up that has a revolving balance. A lot of people assume your auto, your mortgage, student loans, that is not calculated in your credit utilization. It's only based off of revolving. So again, what you don't know can hurt you. People who say, oh, I don't like credit cards. Well, let's say you only have $1,000 credit card and you go and life happens. You have to go out there and you have $1,000 credit card and you got to get your brakes replaced on your vehicle. You use 70% of that credit card limit. Guess what? Your score just dropped. It wasn't because you were negligent. It wasn't because you missed a payment. It wasn't because you were dodging a creditor. Life happened. So this is why I tell people at minimum, you should have at least access to $10,000 of the minimum available credit cards. And that's just because life can happen. Because in that exact same scenario, if you had $10,000 of revolving credit cards and you have to use that same $700 for your brakes, now you only at 7%. It didn't affect you the same way as if you only had $1,000 credit card limit.
Interesting.
So that's why I tell people credit isn't just about having access to it for the sake of utilizing it frivolously. Most people don't like to use credit because they don't understand it. I know people who misuse checking accounts. It doesn't mean I'm not going to have one. It just means I'm going to alter my behavior on how I utilize my checking account.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
So that's that. And then, so those are the two largest components of what makes up your credit score. The other three components, you have your length of credit history, which is 15%, which is extremely important. Meaning, if you have someone who every single, who goes on credit binges literally every single year, your score will only cap at a certain amount because every time you get a new account, you lose age of file. And 15% of what makes up your score is credit age or the length of your credit age. You also have a mixture of credit, which is 10%. A mixture of credit means from a credit scoring algorithm and from a funding and financing standpoint, banks, your credit profile likes to see that you have a good mixture of credit, some installment accounts, some revolving accounts, you're making your payments on time, and those are being, no late payments, et cetera, et cetera. And then 10%, the last 10% is based upon new credit, meaning that your credit profile isn't just dormant forever, but, maybe every 5 to 7 years you are getting something new, on your credit. And I always tell people, credit really is just a game. And when you look at it in that capacity, you play it differently as opposed to saying, oh, credit is bad or it's the devil and all these other cliches we've been taught in our communities. I truly feel that we've been brainwashed to think credit is bad, especially in our communities, because I really do believe that credit can help to unlock wealth. And if they don't want a certain mass of people to know the secrets, what do? They taint the information. So we've been tainted to think that credit is bad. When truly, if you look at statistically, most wealth has been built through leverage, whether it's real estate developers, whether it's, individuals who built multi-million-dollar industries by leveraging their partner's credit, or, it's so many different ways. One of the top ways most people get startup capital is by tapping into equity into their home. Well, the foundational point to even get to that is you got to make sure your credit is in position so you can buy the property. To buy the property, to be able to have some equity in there and then be able to utilize that equity to go and start your business or send your kids to college. There's so many different scenarios, and I can go on and on and on.
And that's
but
exactly
ultimately,
why,
that's what makes up a credit.
And that's exactly why, like I mentioned, like the rich stay rich no matter what demographic, but, just spending habits, not so much demographic, but the rich stay rich by using other people's money. Right, whether that's partners, whether that's investors, or whether that's the bank. And I'm a firm believer of using the bank against itself. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm such a big proponent on using any type of low financing options when it comes down to house, and never using them on a single family, always using them on a multifamily asset, simply because, and like I say it to everybody, if Apple, if Google, Cash Money Records, doesn't matter. If these companies chose to put their business up for sale for 5% down, it would be a bloodbath. So real estate or businesses should be taken in the same exact manner and using, like you said, using that leverage in order for you to control a bigger piece of the pie without necessarily having to put up all the capital necessarily to make the purchase. So it's right on. So, okay, so we got the factors of what makes up your credit score. So individuals that are, because we're going to swing it into then using credit to make, to leverage and go after other assets. If somebody now understands, okay, here's my credit profile, my credit score isn't looking good. What is the quickest way that someone would be able to, boost their score in a respectable manner?
So usually the number one reason why most scores are where they are is credit utilization. And that is because we haven't been taught that credit utilization makes that big of a difference. Going back to the scenario, you have one credit card for $1,000, you use $700, your score is at 70, your score drops 70% of the usage. So one of the quickest, fastest ways to increase your credit score, credit profile, is to get access to more revolving credit. So that may sound easier said than done, because if your credit profile is not in position to get approved for credit, then that could hinder you. So one of the tricks that I have a lot of clients do is utilizing the power of authorized users, meaning I need a credit boost. I come to you as my friend, my relative, or whatever relationship we have, and ask you to add me on as an authorized user to your credit card. Now, I don't get the card. Essentially, I'm renting the history of that credit card. So going back, I have $1,000 of available credit. I use $700. You have a $10,000 credit card. You add me on as an authorized user. That history now reports on my profile. My new available limits are $11,000. I still have the same $700 balance. My score just increased literally overnight because now my utilization is less than 7%. Even from a standpoint of helping your teenage children build their credit, which I think that should be the gift for them graduating high school. You add them on as an authorized user as young as 13 years old. Make sure you keep your payments in good standing. By the time they're 18, when you can pull their credit, they will have a strong 700 plus credit score.
And that's it. And I'll tell you the story. And it's interesting you said that, because my mom actually did that for me. And it's interesting. My family wasn't necessarily using credit. They were kind of the scared ones. Like, if they were going to use credit, make sure you never miss a payment. Like, that was their big thing. And not so much. So they were defensive with it, but they didn't they didn't go on the offense with it, using, credit as a leverage for more, financial opportunities. So, but they taught me the defensive end. And that is one thing that she did help me with by tacking being an authorized user, but not receiving a card. My mom took very good care of her credit, and I was able to be a benefit of it. And it's a great point that you put that out there, because that's how the generational subconscious starts to change and starts to shift with those types of habits that you just mentioned. So, cool. The first thing that individuals do is to find a way to tackle the 35% with the credit utilization and finding a way to increase their credit limit. Obviously without damaging it, but increasing their credit limit.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. So what now, and you've kind of touched on it, our credit card, I mean, what's the correct, okay, so assuming somebody has handled the credit utilization part, their score increases a little bit, and maybe they've done, are there any other tips and tricks that, you might recommend to kind of boost up their score a little bit besides the credit utilization rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably the quickest way to boost your credit. Another thing is any accounts that may be in collections. One of the things, and I actually have a video on my YouTube channel at Mr. Will Roundtree on YouTube, where I state never pay your collection accounts. And what I mean by that is, again, what we don't know can hurt us. A lot of times we think we're doing the right thing. Morally, it's right. But again, credit is a game. By paying your collection accounts, you run the risk of your score dropping. And this is why. So let's say you have a collection account that's been on your report for 5-6 years. Okay. The longer that collection account is sat on your report, that account has become dormant. When you make a payment on that account, even though you're paying it off, what happens is it reactivates and makes it look like a new account. Because remember, a credit score is an algorithm, so it's all based off of information. It's no emotion attached to it. And so when you make a payment, it shows like a new account, because now that went from a $500 collection account to a $0 collection account. The dollar amount of the collection is irrelevant. It's the information. So I had a client who had got an inheritance. She paid off about $15,000 of her collection accounts. Her score dropped 100 plus points because she didn't know any better. So I always tell people one of the ways you can help boost your credit score is, one, anytime you have a derogatory item, you always want to dispute it. And the reason being is that you're not disputing it saying it's not yours, you've never been late. You're disputing it based off of the fact, I need you to prove to me, ABC Collection Agency, that you're reporting this information accurately. And if the information isn't being reported accurately, you have to delete it off my credit report, whether I owe it or not. Now, it doesn't mean the person doesn't owe the money. It just means from a credit standpoint, they cannot report that information if they are reporting it inaccurately. And that goes for anything reporting, not just a collection. You can dispute a bankruptcy off your report. You can dispute a medical bill. There's pretty much anything reporting derogatory, you have the right to dispute per the Fair Credit Reporting Act. But most people, they assume they just have to pay it, but paying it doesn't solve the pain point, which is the credit score. We want to fix the credit, because once you get it off your report, then you can make an arrangement, make payments, whatever you want to do. But now it can no longer adversely affect you from a credit standpoint.
So it's like ripping off the Band-Aid instead of, and actually stitching it up.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay. So now that we've kind of identified, okay, what is credit comprised of? If your score isn't in the right way, how do you get your score back up into a fruitful place? Aside from taking care of your credit, which, kind of individuals should be able to, at least the listeners from this show, should be able to get a solid idea of how to maintain credit. But the bigger thing that, people kind of want to learn is leveraging their credit, or the options that they have to leverage their credit to either buy assets or buy investment real estate. So for an example, because like I said, it's either the credit or the money, but both of them are an excuse only because it's all around us. You just have to go searching for it. But long story short, I find a nice 4, 5, 6 unit building, and, I have to put down 5%, 10%, whatever that particular number is. But let's say all in, I need to find $20,000 to invest in a small project. What are some of my options for leveraging credit, or what's around me that I might not know that's around me that I can utilize in order to gain access to $20,000?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is I always tell people no good deal will ever go unfunded. And that all starts with, even more than credit, understanding the power of having a good network of a sphere of influence around you.
Right.
So when I teach entrepreneurship, that's one of the things I do teach. But from a funding standpoint, a client comes to me, an individual, and they say, hey, I have this project. How do I leverage my credit? So we have a method what we use called creative financing. Okay. It's something that's really been around forever, but most people haven't looked at this option because we've looked at credit as a mean. We looked at credit from a consumer standpoint, not a entrepreneur or business standpoint. So the easiest and quickest way is that I would actually leverage a person's credit or my credit or whoever the individual is, and we would go after revolving credit lines, i.e. credit cards or lines of credit, to be able to tap into that capital to be able to put down for that 20%. I don't care if you have $500,000 in the bank. I'm going to always leverage my credit first. And that is because, like you said, the banks work and leverage our credit and our income all the time. Think about it. When we go and open a bank account, we put our paychecks, our income earned, all of that into the bank. They take our money and go and do what?
Yep, reinvest
They leverage it. They invest it. So as their funds get low, what do? They pump promotions to get people to open more bank accounts, get people to put more money in. We are their lines of credit. All we're doing, or all I'm doing, is showing people now how to leverage the bank for them to be your line of credit. So I tell my clients, I don't care if the capital I get from the bank is personal credit, business credit, a line of credit, credit cards, installment, as long as I have, and it starts even further or a deeper dive than just the credit, understanding business and how ROI works, return on investment, because you have to have an exit strategy to make your money work for itself. I'm going to always leverage bank money because I can always tap into that, or it's endless. Think about it. Let's say I got a project and I need 100,000. I leverage my credit and I can only get 70. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my wife in position, leverage her credit and go get another 70. And then guess what? I'm going to leverage our daughter's credit, get her in position, go get another 70. So it's endless. So it's really never a lack of finances. We just lack strategy. But because we've been deemed to look at credit from a consumer standpoint, yeah, most people leverage credit to do what? Go to concerts, go on vacation, go shopping. And what's the return on investment on all of those things besides some pictures we can put on social media? None. So,
and they usually put those pictures on social media a couple of days after they look like they're still on the move, but that's another story.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
I'm a culprit of it sometimes, not too much, but I make sure I put that Throwback Thursday on there or something.
Absolutely. So understanding that now there should never be a reason why a person can't go and start that business, get that investment property, write that film, invest in that company, and then more importantly, it minimizes people going out there, and I like to use the term begging investors to invest in them or their project. Because if I have an option to be able to invest in my own business, where I have to retain 100% equity, whereas where I'm going in and I'm asking an investor to invest in my startup, where I'm probably going to have to give up 49% or more equity stake in my business because I don't have a proven concept. I'm coming to the table with nothing. So you're basically mortgaging your future. So I have this term where I say people really can leverage their credit to now have them take control so they can be the architect of their own future. And when we have that mindset, and that's why a lot of times when I'm talking with my clients, a lot of my one-on-one, my first 2 or 3 sit downs is all mindset, because we have to change how they think about credit. And I get a lot of clients who want to go through the process and then they get scared because now they're reverting back to what their parents has taught them, you know? And so we have to understand that, yeah, this is foreign for us, but there's too many different proven, examples of how this has benefited the wealthy. That's why they say success leaves clues. And so when we understand all these things, we can move a little bit differently from a standpoint of credit, business, funding, financing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a whole cyclical system that we haven't been taught. Again, it's all a game. And when we know the game, when we know the rules, we can play it a little bit differently.
I absolutely love it. And as we start our descent here and wrap up, the last topic before we get into the core 4, easy funding. I've seen it. Yes. I've looked at it. I've investigated it. Talk to us about it, because the value proposition, it looks like you can get access to funds without sacrificing your credit, essentially, or, unpack that and correct all my, anything that I got wrong. But just talk to us about easy funding really quickly.
Absolutely. So Easy Funding is really a company myself and my partner co-founded that we've put in place where essentially we took our 20, 30 plus years within the industry and we've packaged it for the masses. Essentially what it is we're showing someone and educating them on how to leverage their personal credit along with their business to tap into the bank's money. We call it TBM, the bank's money. But we've packaged it and put it in place to where we do all of the heavy lifting. Meaning if you come over, your credit isn't in position, guess what? We got our credit repair team. Guess what? You come over, you don't have a business in place. Guess what? We're going to show you how to properly structure your company. Guess what? You have your credit in place, but your business, you have your business, but it's not, it's not in compliance. We help you get compliant. So once all those components are in place, we have the bank relationships. We send you through to our underwriting funding team. And then we are the ones that go out and align you with our lenders who will get you qualified based upon what your profile qualifies you for. Now, you are still leveraging your credit, but again, we do the heavy lifting, because one of the things a lot of entrepreneurs running the issue of, and I always take this survey every time I speak in front of an audience, how easy was it for you to go out on your own and get access to a capital through a bank loan? And usually the room is about as quiet as it was for that 1.2 seconds I asked you that question. Mm-hmm. And so what we've done is we've made it to where now they don't have to go out there and bump their heads, spend countless hours trying to figure it out. We've made it extremely accessible, which is why we call it easy funding. And we've had tremendous success. Last year, we've helped over 500 plus small and medium-sized businesses get access to up to $125 million last year.
Awesome.
So, and we're on pace to actually almost double that this year.
I was going to say, because Easy Funding launched, if I'm not mistaken, it launched in the spring of this year, no?
No, that was our kind of new branding behind it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we're actually going on our second year. Yeah, so it was almost like a test pilot last year. We did $125 million just testing it out.
Oh, so obviously that worked.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, awesome. We'll bring it down right over to the core 4 questions that I ask each and every guest on the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast. Question number 1. What is your favorite aspect about real estate?
Oh, my favorite aspect is once I learned that most millionaires have created wealth leveraging real estate, I was sold. It's one of the very few things where you don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to know a bunch of individuals. You don't have to be lucky. You just have to educate yourself. You really don't have to have a ton of money, and you can invest in an appreciating asset that can be leveraged in so many different ways. So that's what I love about real estate, and it's something I can teach my 17-year-old daughter, which I'm doing right now, and my 8-year-old son.
Beautiful. Question number 2, favorite business or personal development book?
Oh, right now I am reading the book Power of Focus. Not only does it's like a journey of everything that anyone as an entrepreneur is going to go through, but it also has a lot of life scenarios. So even if you're just a career person, meaning you have a corporate job, is going to talk to you and how to balance work, life, and relationships. If you're an entrepreneur, same thing. It talks about everything from goal setting to mindset to, subconscious thinking, everything. And my wife and I actually read a chapter of that every single night for the past couple weeks.
Is that, and that's Power of Focus, Jack Canfield, right?
Absolutely.
Author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Question number 3, what are the fun things that you like to do in your spare time when you're not, because obviously it seems like you're a family man, but when you're not helping people get into the 800 club, or if you're not, pulling down multi-million-dollar deals, what are you doing in your spare time?
Oh, man, I love basketball. Once I found out I wasn't going to be 6'5", obviously my hoop dreams went out the window. But I love basketball.
I had the same dream. I'm 5'7", so I got over it real quick.
Right. Right. I'm actually the basketball coach for my son's basketball team. I just love sports and all around. Outside of that, I love to shoot pool. I love to travel, and so I do go back and forth to Milwaukee pretty frequently to go and help out and visit my family.
The bonus question: favorite basketball team?
Oh, I'm from Milwaukee, so Milwaukee Bucks.
So you're a Bucks fan. All right.
Greek freak.
I got you. Yeah. I'm a Knicks fan, so that's another story. Last but certainly not least, where can people find you at?
Oh man, pretty much all social media platforms. Well, my 2 main ones, Instagram and Facebook. My handle is at Mr. Will Roundtree, and that's Mr. Mr. Will Roundtree. YouTube, Mr. Will Roundtree as well. If they want to order my book, they can go to Amazon.com, or if they go to creditisking.biz, they can get an autographed copy. And then I am, in the next few weeks, probably a month or so, will be launching my app, Credit is King app, to be able to give people pocket access to me at all times. So whether I'm doing a speaking engagement or you want to see who's the latest person from our team to hit the 700 Credit Club, my app, Credit is King, will be launching here shortly.
That's actually pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. I hope to stay tuned on that. Will, I greatly appreciate you taking the time, brother. Like I said, I thank you for reaching out as an established businessman, entrepreneur yourself. I greatly appreciate you reaching the hand down for some of the newer generation entrepreneurs who, are only 2.5 years into the game, and, just lifting them up and providing that support when I know your schedule is extremely busy. So I definitely wanted to thank you for the opportunity. And I'm definitely sure that the audience got a lot of info and content that they could put to use, a lot of nuggets and a lot of actionable steps, just as long as they don't complicate it, because you're able to break it down nice and simple. And like you said, it's all mindset, and the individuals that are looking to take the step in furthering their credit or, raising their credit score, using their credit to leverage for assets, you gave them the nice, simple steps to achievement, and I greatly appreciate you for that. Will, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you. I hope, we provided some plentiful content for everyone, and I just look forward to seeing everyone go out there and strive and become the architect of their own destiny.
Love it. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.